Welcome, dear students. Our current session will focus on a comparison between the syntactic differences and similarities in the British and the American English. I hope by the end of the session you would be able to differentiate between the British and the American English at syntactic levels. Well, my dear students, American English and British English share most, but not all the syntactic patterns. There are a few syntactic patterns that differ or that vary in both the varieties. However, the frequency of these differences are far lesser as compared to the phonological or lexical differences that exist between the two varieties. In American English, collective nouns such as family, staff, and committee, as you can see on the slide, they are given in the bold, and names referring to certain sports, teams, companies, organizations, and institutions, they generally require a singular verb. So, a committee is, a staff is, a family is. In the same way, sports, teams, and other organizations generally take a singular verb. Look at the example here. These are some headlines that are taken from the corpus of different news. Shadow government is at work in secret. Notice the use of is for the organization that we call government, not government are. This is the American possibility of using it syntactically. Look at another example. Here again, the team has. For team, that is a collective noun, a singular verb is used. A plural verb agrees with a collective noun would be ungrammatical, in the American English, whereas we would find that frequently used in the British English. If you look at this example that I have taken from BNC, the corpus, it says, once ITV realized the BBC are going ahead, BBC as an organization are going ahead instead of is going ahead. This is the British tradition of using language, not the American, and it would be considered incorrect in the American English. The news continues, the government were, compare this use in the British, variety with the previous example where government is was used. A few collective nouns, however, take, plural verb in both the British variety and the American variety. Police is one of the examples of that. North American English, by the way, this abbreviation NAE again stands for North American English, is commonly it commonly uses singular forms in compounds like Drug Enforcement Unit and New Fair Market, Recent Policy, etc. So where compounds are made, Drug Enforcement Unit or New Fair Market as compounds, when they are used. Generally, in American English, a singular verb form is used for them. When the first element of a compound is itself a compound containing a plural form, for example, hate crimes is a compound where it already has this plural form S. The larger compound that would be made out of this, if you look at the screen, hate crimes policy. This is yet another compound that is made from this particular hate crimes compound. Further extending it to hate crimes policy, this S is retained. Generally speaking, when we talk of the syntactic structures, I would say American style is far more tolerant than the British style for using longer strings of, modifiers to create lengthier nouns. Look at the examples. Department spokeswoman, Darla Jordan. Department spokeswoman. All these nouns are, modifiers are used with the noun to make a, longer noun. Another example, death penalty opponent Helen Prigin. So, all these modifiers are used to modify the noun. And comparatively very long ones as opposed to the British tradition. Another example is celebrity, capital punishment, opponent, Suzanne Sarandon. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 modifiers are used with the name, with the noun, to, make it a longer string of a noun to convey whatsoever the meaning is to be conveyed. This does not generally work in the British tradition. Well, my dear students, when it comes to restrictive relative clauses, both the word that and the word which, both of them occur, in both the languages, that is the American variety and the British variety. But, when it comes to writing, when we focus on the American English, actually, you would notice that a preference is given to the use of that. And in fact, in the spoken language, there is even a far stronger tendency of using that. What does it mean? It simply means that American English generally uses that, and in almost all the cases. Whereas the British English uses both that and which, and keeps a difference, and preferences keep on varying depending upon the syntax or the structure of the sentence. So when we compare, the use of questions in both of these varieties, look at the question, have you finished the assignment? The answer in American and British English, how it would vary. In the British and the American English, both of these, this answer is possible. Yes, I have. But, only British English would allow for, yes, I have done. Americans would always say, yes, I have. British sometimes might say, yes, I have, but sometimes they would say, yes, I have done. So, for instance, asked whether flying time from London to Chicago varies, British flight attendants may respond, it can do. This would be the response of the speakers who use British variety, while the American counterparts are more likely to say, it can. So, this do would not be used in the American variety. Another difference between the two varieties is when it comes to, the syntactic structures. In American English, got serves as a simple past tense, meaning became. She got tired. So, it simply means she became tired. Or arrived. When she got home, for arrived, the Americans would use she got home. In American English, both got and gotten serve as past participles, but gotten is preferred. Whereas the British variety does not use gotten, it sticks to the use of got. Here is an example from the British English. From here the example starts. No amount of NATO pressure would have got it even on the paper. Would have got. This is the British choice. If the Americans would have to say this, they would say would have gotten. They would add here. And it would become gotten in the American case. American English displays characteristic adverb use, as with the amplifier real. For example, it's real good, he did it in a real fast way, etc. So, to amplify, to exaggerate, the word real is used as an amplifier. US speakers prefer amplifiers that are different from the amplifiers that the British speakers use. So, for example, pretty easy, pretty good are the amplifiers that the British would use. The Americans would use. Whereas when you compare it with the British ones, they would use quite big, quite easy. You can see the difference in the choices. By the way, Americans also use another amplifier that is quite common in the young generation, the use of super. So, super good, for example. Quite occurs less frequently in American English as compared to the British English anyways. When it comes to prepositions, there are a lot of differences between the two languages, and we would find that the varieties differ in the use. So I would give you a few examples very quickly. If you look at this, the Englishman lives in a village, whereas the American lives on it. You know, this is how it is used differently. The Englishman gets into a car or gets out of a car. And if you compare it with the American gets on the car or off a car. This is how the prepositions are used differently, but there are a lot more differences when it comes to prepositions. In British English, at a weekend is used, while when it comes to the American English, on the weekend is used. So the British would say, I'll do this at the weekend. The Americans would say, I'll do it on the weekend. Another example is, the British says, please write to me soon. This use of to is a part of the British style, whereas the American variety omits this use of to and simply goes for, please write me soon. My dear students, I hope these examples that I have given of the differences between the two languages when it comes to the syntactic level, they give you some clarity on how both the varieties are different from each other.